What is faithfulness? What is faithfulness? It's keeping our word, right? It's doing what we said we're going to do. It's committing to keeping our word. It's following through, doing what you said you're going to do. We think about faithfulness in marriage, in business contracts, in employment, mortgages, paying bills. Faithfulness means I'm going to do what I said I will do. And now we have big contracts that if you sign your name on, if you don't do it, then they're going to take you to court for it. Faithfulness, commitment. Jesus is expecting. Let's say that Jesus is expecting. What's he expecting? Jesus is expecting faithfulness. He's expecting faithfulness to us. I'm Pastor Brian, and this is Launch Point Church. Thanks for coming along with us today. I pray you find something inspiring to be able to follow Jesus. And if you want to connect with us, I invite you to connect with us at launchpointnaz.org/contact. And you feel there's a form there you can just fill out, and that comes straight to me. I will gladly pray for you, celebrate with you, or anything else that we can, whatever I can do. I can't do everything, but whatever I can do. I pray, though, that you're inspired today to follow Jesus better. So let's talk about this Jesus expecting. What's he expecting? He's expecting faithfulness. When we think about it, he is super faithful, right? He is the faithful one. He was faithful when he left heaven to come to earth to teach us about Jesus, about God, to teach us about how to get to heaven, and then die on the cross and was raised again so that through his death and resurrection and our faith in that, paying the price for our sin and him giving us new life, that we would know God now and have his spirit and also be in heaven when things are all said and done. He's faithful to that. He fulfilled his plan. He's also said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. So he's preparing a place for us in heaven. He also sits at the right hand of God so that he can plead our case before God and be our what do you want to say, representative to God. He's doing those things faithfully. He told his disciples, I'm going to send my spirit to you as I ascend back to heaven. And he did that. He's faithful. He gives us his spirit. In all those kinds of ways, he's faithful. So why would he not expect faithfulness from his people? Of course he expects that. And so he's faithful in all things. Shouldn't we at least be working towards growing in faithfulness, perhaps? We're going to read from Luke 19:11-27. And it's a story. It's not like an event that actually happened. It's a story Jesus told to be able to teach us about faithfulness, how he would act and react, how God acts and reacts, and how humans act and react, and how it should be in order to find the best result. And so it's a story. And so I'm just going to read the story as Jesus would have told it. While they were listening to this, he went on, told them a parable, again, story, because he was near Jerusalem and the people thought that the kingdom of God was to appear at once. He said, a man of noble birth went to a distant country to have himself appointed king and then to return. So he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 minas, gave them money. Put this money to work, he said, until I come back. But his subjects hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, we don't want this man to be our king. He was made king, however, and he returned home. Then he sent for the servants to whom he had given the money in order to find out what they had gained with it. The first one came and said, Sir, your mina has earned 10 more. Well done, my good servant, his master replied. Because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, I give you the charge, or take charge of 10 cities. The second man came and said, Sir, your mina has earned 5 more. His master answered, Take charge of 5 cities. Then another servant came to him and said, Sir, here is your mina, your money. I have kept it laid away in a piece of cloth. I was afraid of you because you're a hard man. You take out what you did not put in and reap what you did not sow. His master replied, I will judge you by your own words, you wicked servant. You knew, did you, that I am a hard man, taking out what I did not put in and reaping what I did not sow? Why then didn't you put my money on deposit so that when I came back I could have collected it with interest? Then he said to those standing by, Take his mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10. Sir, they said, he already has 10. And he replied, I tell you that to everyone who has, more will be given. But as for the one who has nothing, even what he has will be taken away. And now he's going to talk about the other people that sent the representative to say we didn't want him as king. He says, but to those enemies of mine who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me. Whoa, that was a rough penalty for their rejection of him. All right, so let's look at these three things. Three things out of here that talk to us about faithfulness and what happens around that about being faithful, right? So the first one is, number one is the advancement for those who are faithful in effort. Advancement. So what the king had given them, and because of their faithfulness, he gave them more. He gave them cities to govern, in fact. So they became very powerful in that. Faithful to the double. This is interesting. So the one who gained 10 got 10 cities. The one who gained 5 got 5 cities. And there's a thing called the double that happens in a lot of the blessings, Old and New Testament. It's a great reward, in fact. In Isaiah 61, it talks about the double, which is an inheritance back to those who had gone into exile because God was not happy with them having other gods, worshiping other gods in their community. And he told them, when you do this, I will have you conquered and taken away, but I will bring you back. And so in Isaiah, he says, you will get the double. Whatever was taken from you in your exile, I'll give you double back. Paul talks about elders in the New Testament, and he says elders in the church are worth double honor. So there's double in that as well. It wasn't the amount because of the amount that everything was doubled. There's an advancement of double just because of their effort. He didn't make a calculation based upon their growth and all that kind of stuff. He just doubled what they had done. And it was because of their effort. So there was a formula of that, because I just said it, of recompense. But it was based upon their effort, that they'd actually done something. He didn't say to the guy who had 10, oh, you get rewarded. And the guy, oh, you only got 5, you're nobody, you take it away. So advancement comes to those who put effort into doing those things. What was the king's instructions for them? Put my money to work. What's Jesus? He's the King of Kings. What is his instructions to us? Basically, there's a lot of teachings, and you can read through the Gospels, of excellent teachings about life and about things to be and to do as God's people. But if you were to kind of put them all together in a couple categories, one would be to honor God with holy living and make disciples. Pretty basic. Honor God with holy living, meaning adjust your life to live his way, and then make disciples, help other people follow Jesus too. Those are the two instructions that we have. So how much effort do you put into honoring God and making disciples? How much effort do we put into in our daily lives honoring God by adjusting our lifestyles, by honoring him? How often are we doing that? Are we doing that on a regular basis? Are we growing in that? How's that going for us? And how often are we helping other people see who Jesus is and follow him as well? That's what he's given for us to do. That's the mina he's given us. The money he's given us is to go do something with the grace that I have given you. You might say, well, I'm really not qualified to minister to other people, and I'm not qualified to make disciples. There's really no qualifications for that, except that you have his grace in you, right? Because when you have him in you, because you have surrendered your life to him and his spirit is in you, he will pour out his grace on your obedience and empower you to live for him. But if we do nothing, well, we're going to talk about that in a minute, then we're choking ourselves out of what he wants to do. Making disciples just involves living around someone long enough for them to see Christ in you. And as you share the gospel with them, and as you share what it means to follow Jesus, and they learn to follow Jesus by your actions, then they also become followers of Jesus. It's not like a real hard technical thing. It's just helping people see Jesus in you and follow those things as well, and know him as Savior as well. So how much effort are you putting into honoring God and making disciples? So that's the ones who put effort in and saw a return. Now, what is there for the guy who did nothing but hide it? What is it for the guy who did nothing but hide it? Correction. Right? Correction being, hey, you didn't do very good. Hey, you didn't do what I said to do. So he's still a servant, but he said, I'm taking away what was given to you, and I'm giving it to someone else. That's pretty sad. He buried it. He did all that stuff. The instruction was to work the money, and he hid the money. He did nothing with it. Maybe you remember a time when you were young, and your parents were like scolding you because you didn't do what they said to do. Or maybe you were on a job, and maybe this was when you were younger too, and your boss said, look, I don't pay you to do nothing, stand around, right? Correction, go do this. You're supposed to be doing this, let me correct because you're not doing that. And so that goes that way, you get corrected for that. Maybe it's easier to get away with in following Jesus because we don't have to tell anybody what we're doing and not doing, and the only people that really care are the people at church, if they ask, right? If there's any accountability, or maybe me right here, right now, say, hey, how are you doing at that? And so it's easier to get away with the internal stuff, the living the holy life is on the inside, and maybe we can hide some of the bad stuff, when we're in public. And so we get away with some of that. But is that what we want to be doing? Is getting away with things, right? So how would you feel to have Jesus take away his grace in your life because you never gave it away, because you never shared it with others? How would you feel, think about that a second, how would you feel to have Jesus take away his grace in your life because you never gave it to others? Now that wouldn't happen because grace is completely opposite of earn. You don't earn that. Grace is not earned, grace is given, and by faith we connect with that and his grace works in our life. But you understand what I'm saying here is that if we're not obeying and participating, how much grace do we expect him to keep putting into our lives if we're not even using it, right? If we're not even living it out. A pastor once told me a long time ago, if I wasn't being a very good pastor, God would take that church away from me and give it to someone else. I don't know exactly if that's 100% of what God would do or how he would do it. But I'll guarantee if I wasn't doing anything as a pastor that he would correct me somehow and he would do something about that. So anyway, really important to be obeying. So correction for those who do nothing. The third group is a little scarier. It's a little more scary, and that's destruction. Destruction for those who completely reject him, right? Destruction for those who completely reject him. I think what it said was, hey, bring those, my enemies, which were those who sent the delegation to say we don't want him as king, bring them here and kill him in front of me. God's not going to wipe us out because we fail him here or there at one point or another. But there is an end game in all of this. There is an end game. God has already set it all up. It's not like he's making it up because of us. He's already set up that those who reject him outright, they're rejecting God's authority in the grand plan of all things. It's bigger than just us and my life right here and right now, right? He is the authority over all things. He's a supreme authority over all that. So we would be rejecting the whole order of things by rejecting God. And in the end of all of that, there is punishment to be paid. And that's sad. But we don't have to fear that punishment, that judgment, because we've surrendered to him, right? We've surrendered to Jesus. And even though we're not perfect, we are desiring to grow and go forward and learn to be more faithful, right? We're learning to be more faithful. We want to do his will, his way. How important do you find it to make people aware of God's plans? How important do you find it to help people be aware of God's plans? It's part of being faithful to his plans for us, living a holy life, honoring him, and making disciples as well. How important do we feel that? First, we have to decide, right? First, we have to decide, are we going to really follow Jesus or are we going to reject him? And then part of that is to have a heart for those who are rejecting him, to be able to go and share his love for them, his mercy, his grace, all those things that he's desiring to reveal himself and unleash his great holy power and kingdom in their lives if they would follow him, if they would surrender. So we love people enough that we share that grace with others. So Jesus is expecting. He's expecting. What's he expecting? He's expecting that we see his faithfulness as an example and become faithful to him by living his ways, right? by doing things his way, honoring his love and his sacrifice, honoring his authority in our lives. So what are we to do from right where we're standing? What are we to do from right where we are right now? One thing we could do is know what to expect from Jesus and what he expects from us. Know what he expects. Let's just say, what are we going to do? We're going to know it. How are we going to know it? We're going to find out about it. We're going to read about it in the Bible. We're going to ask other people. We're going to see what it all means. I want to know what Jesus expects of me and what I can expect of him. And he's revealed that in the Bible for us to know. And so other people who know the Bible can help us. We can pray and ask God to help us know that. We can look in the Bible and see what that is. And one of the great reasons he's given us the Bible. And the Bible's amazing, and we're so glad for it. We're so thankful for it because he's helping us. As I said before, he's given us the plan. He's given us the roadmap. He's given us the expectations. As we see how he acts and reacts with people, humanity throughout time, and how people act and react to him and what those effects are, then we can say, okay, that's not a good way to go. This is a good way to go. So know what he expects from you. Know it. You have to get into it to see it. Like it's just not in front of us. We have to get to it. Get the Bible, open it, read it, and pray to understand it and find what he expects from us. The second thing is this, and that's to grow in faithfulness. Grow in faithfulness. I want to be more faithful. Help me to be more faithful, God. I like to think that after 57 years, I've got everything figured out and I can be perfect. But the fact is, I'm not. The fact is, I don't know anybody who is. So always growing in that faithfulness. He's helped me to overcome this and this and this and this. But what about this and this and this in my life? So having to overcome that and continue to become faithful, more and more faithful to God. Live out the things you've learned. Maybe you think you've arrived, or maybe you can see, I have a little ways to go. So adjust your actions and reaction ways that are more faithful to God all the time. I want to read to you three verses from the scriptures, 2 from the Psalms and 1 from the Proverbs that talk about faithfulness, okay? The first one is from the writer of Psalm 66, verse 13. I will come to your temple with burnt offerings and fulfill my vows to you. That's faithfulness. He's proclaiming to God, I will fulfill my vows to you. I've made these vows, I've made the promises, and I will keep them. I will fulfill them. He's telling God that. Similarly, in Psalm 66, the writer says, I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in the presence of his people. In other words, I want people to see, not for my own glory, but I want other people to see that there is a life in which we can be faithful to God and also what happens when we're faithful to God. So he writes that too. Proverbs, King Solomon, in all of his wisdom, wrote this in Proverbs 3 and 4. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. In other words, always be loving and faithful. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and men. Love and faithfulness. Those two things are key in our life to grow in so that we can honor God and be a blessing to people and help other people see how to honor God too. So I want to ask you, how faithful do you feel you are right now? How faithful do you feel you are? I want to grow in that. I need to be more faithful to God. I'm not saying just go to church. Going to church is a great place to learn faithfulness and a place, we should go to church to honor God and honor with other people, honoring God, be a part of the community that honors God and wants to live for him. And we grow in all kinds of ways because we're rubbing shoulders with people who love Christ and want to honor God altogether. Be faithful. We learn to be faithful there. We learn to be faithful in praying. And then our actions are our faithfulness, right? The actions are proving our promises. The actions are proving our promises. We are faithful when we do what we say we will do. Jesus is expecting faithfulness. We already expect faithfulness from Jesus because he's already proclaimed and has done those things, is doing those things. He's faithful now. Are we faithful? Are you faithful? I'm asking you to think about that and think about how you can know about his faithfulness and grow in his faithfulness and see God work in your life and see God work through your life, how amazing it is. All right? Let me pray for you. God, I'm thanking you for those who are being a part of this with us today. And I'm asking that you will help them to know all about your faithfulness and what you require us in faithfulness. And then to grow in that, to take on this, to take on that, to see how we can live here and live there and speak here and be able to think about you, meditate on you, grow in you. Because faithfulness isn't just a badge we get to wear. It helps us to intensify our relationship with you, the true and living God, who wants to interact with us. We are open for that. Teach us to be faithful. In Jesus' name, amen. I pray you find the faithfulness of God and you find the great blessings that there are to grow in faithfulness, even in this week. All right? Be very blessed.